So for the third year in a row, the Green Bay Packers find themselves with salary cap issues, currently being $16.2 million over the salary cap. So just like the last two seasons, in today's video, we're going to go over on how to fix the Green Bay Packers salary cap and all the moves they can make to get under the cap. And you might be asking yourself, why does this keep happening? Why every offseason for the past 3 years now are the Green Bay Packers in such salary cap trouble when years prior to this was never an issue? Well, first and foremost, Aaron Rodgers' contract. Of course, that's going to play a toll in all of this. During the COVID year when the salary cap didn't move up, that definitely affected things as well. And then, of course, when you get into salary cap trouble, you're pretty much pushing money out to the future, starting an endless cycle of having the same issue the next year afterwards. And that cycle will continue until you really don't have any big contracts left. Say Aaron Rodgers retires, David Bakhtiari is gone, something of that sort. When all those big contracts are gone, then yes, maybe then you'll be more like the Bears, you know, the worst team in the NFL with $92 million cap space. I quickly wanted to run over all the current Green Bay Packers impending free agents. I made an entire video breaking down every single one of these, so if you want to go watch that, click the link right above. But I'm going to go down this list really quick just so we can get an update on all the free agents. Adrian Amos, Dean Lowry, Mason Crosby, Mercedes Lewis, Alan Lazard, Robert Tonyan, Jerron Reed, Randall Cobb, Donald Levitt, Rudy Ford, Eric Wilson, Josh Nyman, Corey Ballantyne, Keyshawn Nixon, Chris Barnes, Tyler Davis, Jake Hansen, and Justin Hollins. As we can see here on the type of free agent, a lot of these players are void, which basically means the Packers had added void years in prior years to push out some of that bonus money. And this basically means, hey, they're still a free agent, but you're going to be paying them money regardless because they still have void years on their deal where you have money pushed out to, so you're going to be paying that regardless. Then we see unrestricted free agents like Alan Lazard and Keyshawn Nixon, and also restricted free agents like Josh Nyman and Chris Barnes. And just to correct myself, Jake Hansen was actually re-signed as he was an exclusive rights free agent, so it really made no sense not to. So now bringing up the Packers contract list for the 2023 season, let's go over some of the issues right now. Aaron Rodgers at $31.6 million cap hit honestly isn't that bad. I believe it's 10th in the NFL for all quarterbacks. It's really not that bad. It's where the future years come into play. If he doesn't indeed retire this year, then it really gets hard if he retires next year or the year after, where there's a lot more money owed that the Packers are going to end up having to pay him. David Bakhtiari's is pretty high. $28.8 million. He had a really good season last year when he was on the field. He was a very good left tackle, but obviously availability is the best ability. But I do believe Bakhtiari's finally over that ACL injury, and he will be a full-time left tackle starter for the Green Bay Packers next year. I do believe they retain him. We'll go over what they should do with him. Kenny Clark, a little high at $23.9 million, but one of the better defensive linemen in the league. Jair Alexander, $20 million. Aaron Jones, $20 million, which is probably the craziest one here just based on the fact that he's a running back, and that's $4 million more than any other running back cap hit scheduled for 2023, which includes Derrick Henry and Ezekiel Elliott, which also those two have crazy cap hits at $16 million. So the fact that Aaron Jones has a $20 million cap hit, that definitely is not going to stay. I do believe Aaron Jones will remain a Packer for at least one more year, and we'll go over what exactly they should do with his deal, but that is definitely not going to stay. Then we see Preston Smith here with $13 million, Rashawn Gary at $10 million on that fifth-year rookie option. He should get extended as well, which could save up some room. Devondre Campbell at $8 million. Adrian Amos, as I said, with the void years, his cap hit for this upcoming season, $7.9 million. He's a free agent. He's not even on the team. That's because they pushed out money from previous years into void years, and now you're paying the price. Then Darnell Savage at $7.9 million, which I think is a ridiculous number for him, but that's what the fifth-year rookie option entails for safety. Rasul at $7.7. Elton Jenkins at that low $6.9 million cap hit after his big extension. And then finally, Jordan Love at $3.9. So for this video, I'm going to base it on the fact that Aaron Rodgers comes back. He doesn't retire. They don't trade him. His cap hit for 2023 is that $31.6 million mark. Now, if you guys want to see a video where we say, okay, Aaron Rodgers either retires or gets traded, what will the Packers cap look like then, and how can they kind of rebuild it rather than push money out to the future? What maybe a rebuild would look like salary cap wise. Let me know down in the comments if you would like to see that video as well. And I know a lot of people are split. A lot of people don't want Aaron Rodgers to return, and a lot of people do. But for the sake of argument for this video, we are going to say he returns. The Packers are going to go quote unquote all in one more year, and they're going to fix the salary cap, pushing money out to the future to make it work for 2023. So the first step is going to be restructuring some of these contracts. Brian Gutekunst made a joke, pretty much said, hey, we're going to pretty much restructure everyone like they did last year. So if you didn't know already, restructuring is pretty much converting base salary to prorated bonus or non-prorated bonuses to prorated bonuses and extending them further out into their contract, and also potentially adding void years onto the deal, which we talked about here earlier. What it does, it lowers the cap hit for the current year because it's moving base salary into prorated bonus and extending it out into future years, but it makes future years a lot harder to move on from said player because that money then becomes guaranteed. So the first one is David Bakhtiari, and I'm going to give you guys a prime example of this. So David Bakhtiari's cap hit is $28.8 million for 2023. If we go to a max restructure, which is putting basically all of his base salary and non-prorated bonuses, turning them all into prorated bonuses, and we restructure him, his cap hit is now down to a $20.8 million. So they saved $7.8 million off the cap in 2023. But David Bakhtiari's last year of his deal is 2024. So if we were to quickly go there real quick, that jumps up to $41 million cap hit. Now, they could extend David Bakhtiari, and they could also add void years. I'm not taking into effect a restructure here, adding void years, just simply because this calculator doesn't really allow you to do that easily. So I'm just basing it off of what it would look like a max restructure, what that cap number would look like in 2023. What they do in 2024 and future years with void years or whatever, that's for a later time. But with a max restructure, David Bakhtiari, his cap hit would go from 28.853 down to a 20.898. Then we have Kenny Clark. So again, here we're probably looking at a restructure for Kenny Clark since he was just extended not too long ago. 23.9 cap hit right now. He also already has void years in 2025 and 2026. So restructuring this would also push some of that into the void years as well, kind of extending it out further rather than lumping it all in 2024, his last year of his deal, like David Bakhtiari, like we saw with his. So you would actually save a decent bit of money here on Kenny Clark with a max restructure. You'd save $10.9 million off the cap, lowering his $23.9 million cap hit, moving a lot of the base salary from this year and the non-prorated bonuses from this year, because as we see, Kenny Clark's base salary right here is $13 million, so a max restructure would bring that down to the minimum you can do. I believe it's $1,080,000, something of that sort. If you restructure it here, $1,165,000, that's what it is. Restructure that, you save $10.9 million off the cap, and his cap hit for 2023 drops down to 12.6, and then we see next year jump up to 28, and then in the void years, 2025 and 2026, you'd be paying him $6.5 million, but that would all come on at 2025 if the Packers didn't retain him at $13 million. So already with just those two moves, max restructures to two of the biggest contracts on the Packers, they're already under the cap. They're now at positive $2.9 million cap space. Now that doesn't include rookie contracts for this upcoming draft and what they do in the offseason. It's not an effective space, but you can see how easy it is just simply doing max restructures. And of course, I'm not saying it's the best idea. It's definitely setting yourself up in the future to have a can of worms of contracts. But if you are going all in, you're truly going all in, and Aaron Rodgers is playing one more season, and you're going to have to rebuild after that anyways, why not, I guess. Then we have Jair Alexander. His cap hit is $20.2 million, which isn't terrible. Jalen Ramsey's, for example, is $25 million cap hit in 2023, so it's not that bad. I still think the Packers will restructure him in some way. Do I think it'll be a max restructure? Probably not. He's already pretty much down to the lowest base salary he can be. They can only save $370,000 off the base salary, but he does have a lot of non-prorated bonuses. So then they would turn this into prorated bonuses and push it out. But I don't think they do the full $12.8 million. I'd say be more around the $8 million mark here. Just a guess, but then that would save them 9.3 off the cap, and his cap hit would jump just under $14 million for the year. The next player on the list here is Aaron Jones, and if we quickly look at his particular deal here, we see in 2023 that $20 million, then it's still high in 2024, $16 million, and then he has 2 void years added onto the deal. So a restructure here, again, would push it out into the future, into some of those void years, and it would save the Packers $10.8 million off the cap and lower his 2023 cap hit significantly. I'm just going to set this as a max restructure, lowering his cap hit all the way down to $8.8 million for 2023. That would raise it up to a $19 million in 2024, and then the void years in 2025 and 2026 at 4.4 piece. But as I said, with the previous contracts, that would get put and escalated on to 2025 if he were not on the team in 2025, and all of that would be paid then. But $8.8 million is a lot more manageable than the $20 million. It's not going to stay like that. I know that for a fact. I don't see Aaron Jones being traded. I definitely see him remaining on the team. but a max restructure is likely going to happen. So now with the 4 main contracts restructured that aren't named Aaron Rodgers, the Packers are now $20 million under the cap. So just with 4 simple moves, Aaron Jones, Jair Alexander, Kenny Clark, and David Bakhtiari pushing the money that you owe this year to them out to the future and saying, hey, we'll pay it later. It creates a lot of space. So a lot of people are always saying, the Packers have no money. They're doomed. And they've been saying that for the past 2 years. At the end of the day, you can always get out of salary cap hell, so call it. You can always push money out to the future. And as I said before, it's not the best idea, but you can always do it. And you can always make moves. If the Packers wanted to do max restructures for everyone they could have upwards of $51 million in cap space, and they could trade for someone like DeAndre Hopkins with a $19 million cap hit or anything of that sort. It can be done. Is it the smartest? No, but it definitely can be done. So I'm actually going to do one more restructure, and that's going to be Preston Smith here. His cap hit's at $13 million. Really not that bad, but he is 31 years old. He's coming off a pretty solid season. The Packers are definitely going to need him based on the fact that Rashawn Gary might not be able to return too soon. I don't think it'll be a max restructure here. I'm going to take not $8.6 million out of that bonus, but $5 million. Now, these are just guesses by me. They could do max restructures. They could do less than this. It's just kind of estimating because I don't think they're going to do a max for every single player. So I'm kind of evening it out there just to get a more realistic approach for what their cap space could look like with all these restructures. That would lower his cap hit to an $8.6 million and give the Packers $24.7 million in cap space. So now that the restructures are done, there still are more that they can do, but these are the main ones. So I'm going to stick to these because it's basically already giving the Packers decent amount of cap space here. Now they can do more. They can create more space, as I said earlier, but I'm going to stick to these. But here are some other ways the Packers could create some salary cap space, one of which is Rashawn Gary, extending him as he's on that 5th-year option here. We see in 2023 his cap hit $10.8 million. So if we were to extend him, which I'm going to take a estimation of what an extension would look like based on other contracts around the league at his position. So let's get that written up real quick. If we look at SpotTrack's contract evaluation for Rashawn Gary, they have his average annual salary value at $20.5 million. I think that's a little low. So it'd be a 4-year, $82 million contract. So I'm actually going to set this up as a 4-year, $88 million contract. That's a little bit higher because if we look at some of the other deals around the league, Leonard Williams, $21 million a year, Myles Garrett, $25, Joey Bosa, $27, and TJ Watt, $28. So I kind of wanted to get him a little bit closer to that. Obviously, he's not going to top TJ Watt's deal. I don't see that happening, but I do see him getting a decent contract. Now, obviously, this ACL is definitely going to play a toll into it as well. But so if I put that deal into here with $25 million signing bonus, which then extends over the 4 years, lower his base salary for this year to save the most money this year against the salary cap. We'll see his cap hit for this year to be 7.5. Next year, jump to 23.9, then to 27.2, then to 29.2. Given the salary cap goes up every year, this would probably be a good deal. Once we hit 2026, he'll probably be a good value for what he is. So a 4-year deal here at $88 million, $25 million signing bonus. I'm not going to worry about guaranteed salary because it doesn't really play a toll into the cap numbers. That's just more contract lingo for him. It doesn't really play a toll into this whole estimation here. So if we transact that, then we see the Packers salary cap actually goes up because that lowers from $10 million cap hit down to 7.5. So they saved money by extending Rashawn Gary. Now, that's with a low base salary for 2023 at $1.3 million and basically lowering it as much as possible for this said year, which then raises it for the future years. As we see here in 2024, they're already over the cap by $9.9 million. So another way they can save money is re-signing Adrian Amos. So as I said earlier, he has a void year and he's not on the team. So they're paying him $7.9 million. Weirdly enough, if they extend Adrian Amos, say, to a 2 to 3 year extension, they can lower the cap hit on this year. So it would be cheaper to have Amos than to not have him. So it's kind of a no-brainer for me. I believe the Packers want to bring him back as well. They're super thin at safety with both him and Rudy Ford impending free agents. So I think you kind of have to. So let's look what that deal would look like. So for Adrian Amos's deal, I'm looking at a 3-year, $20 million contract extension with $3.5 million in signing bonus. Now, they already owe him signing bonus because of the void year, so you can't get rid of that. You owe him that no matter what, that 7.9 or whatever it was for 2023. So that's added on to this, including the additional additional $3.5 million signing bonus, and then we're keeping a void year in 2026, lowering his base salary in 2023 a bit. You see that prorated bonus, and the cap number drops down to 5.8 million, jumps up to 9.1 in 2024, and 10.8 million in 2025. So if we transact that, we see that cap hit does go down, and the Packers gain even more cap space. As I said, it's a weird way around the remaining void year on a player that's not on your team anymore. If you were to extend him, then it basically allows you to take that money that you owe, which it doesn't get rid of it. It just allows you to push it out even further again, just kicking the can farther down the road. Another way the Packers could save money would be trading Darnell Savage. As we said earlier, that $7.9 million cap hit is fully guaranteed. It's a fifth-year rookie option. The problem here is, would a team really trade for Darnell Savage at that $7.9 million mark? Probably not. I think the Packers would have to give them picks in order for them to take on that contract. So I don't see that likely there. So I'm going to keep it as is. This could happen. They'll likely keep him just because they're so thin at safety. But obviously that $7.9 million mark is absurd. And just to quickly go over some of these, Dean Lowry is an impending free agent. It's just he has a void year left, so that $3 million you're paying for him regardless. I don't think the Packers should bring him back. That wouldn't even really lower it that much anyways. Just pay him the $3 million. Dean Lowry, don't need you back. Same goes here for Randall Cobb. He is a free agent, and he has a void year left at $1.391 million. Now, Aaron Rodgers does want him back, so I might go in and just give him a one-year deal just because if Aaron Rodgers comes back, Randall Cobb is likely coming back. And I love Randall Cobb as a player, as a human. He's a great guy. I just think the Packers should go young at wide receiver, and I do think he has some left in the tank, but he's obviously not his prime old self, and I do think he has clutch moments in him. He had a couple of them this year, but nothing crazy. So if it keeps Aaron Rodgers in the building, and I know it's toxic, but I guess you could bring him back another year. Let's just say Randall Cobb signs a one-year, $2.2 million deal to finish out his last season in Green Bay. They add a void year on that just to push out $500K of it. $1 million signing bonus, base salary of $1.2 million, and obviously the most of that bonus on this year, and then $500,000 pushed out to that void year. If you transact that, his cap hit jumps up to a $3 million. Nothing too bad. It loses the Packers a little bit of cap space based off of what they were already going to owe him anyways on a void year, but Randall Cobb's back in the building. Aaron Rodgers is happy. Another one, Mercedes Lewis. Aaron Rodgers wants him back, and I agree with him. I do want Mercedes Lewis back. He has a void year. He's an impending free agent. $1 million on his void year that we owe him anyways, so let's do a one-year extension for him. Just for the sake of things, we're going to give him the same deal as Randall Cobb, 1 year, $2.2 million, $1 million signing bonus. Of course, like I said, that void year still there, so we're going to add another one just to push it out a little bit so we're not owing him a ton of money this year for Mercedes Lewis. Cap number to $2.2 million. We transact that. As we see, the Packers lose a tiny bit of cap space, but not that much. To save back that space, the Packers could actually cut a couple fringe roster players, one of which being Vernon Scott, who I honestly forgot was still on the roster. Cutting him would save $1 million, and although they're thin at safety, I just don't see Vernon Scott being the answer, so we go ahead and cut him there. John Garvin, I think that experiment is over. The Packers do need depth at edge, but I don't, again, just like Vernon Scott, don't think the answer is John Garvin. I think they should draft multiple, maybe sign a guy. Every time John Garvin's on the field on defense, I feel like he's not doing a good job. So that as well saves you $1 million there. As for the free agents on the right side here, we do see Josh Nijman, a restricted free agent. I think this is 100% going to happen. The Packers are going to bring him back on a second-round tender at that $4.3 million mark. The same thing they did with Allen Lazard last year. That pretty much means if a team wanted to claim Josh Nijman, we'll say, they would have to send to the Packers a second-round draft choice as well as sign Josh Nijman. That's not going to happen. A team isn't going to give up a second-round draft choice for Josh Nijman. That pretty much protects him, keeps him on the roster for not a bad price, a $4.3 million cap hit here for a nice depth tackle and could play and start at tackle. As for the other two restricted free agents, Chris Barnes and Tyler Davis, it would be a right of first refusal tender here at $2.6 million, but honestly, I don't know if it's really worth it, especially not for Tyler Davis, but you could argue, okay, maybe they do that for Chris Barnes, but he already got benched for Isaiah McDuffie and was a healthy scratch the last few games of the season. I just don't see it happening. The Packers have Devondre Campbell, Quay Walker, Isaiah McDuffie. Eric Wilson here is an unrestricted free agent, but I do want to re-sign him, which we'll do here next. So he can be the fourth guy, special teamer. It doesn't have to be Chris Barnes. Eric Wilson actually was the highest graded PFF special teamer in the entirety of the NFL. He did a wonderful job since coming into Green Bay as a core special teamer. I think the Packers have to retain him. I'm just going to put it in as a 2-year, $4 million deal with a $1 million signing bonus. It's not like he's going to go out there and play on defense. He's mainly a special teamer, so it wouldn't be that much to retain him. A cap hit, $2 million each year. Obviously, they could adjust it a little bit to make it lower, but it's kind of low money at that point already, so we transact that, get Eric Wilson back, get Randall Cobb, Mercedes Lewis back, Josh Nijman tendered, and now the Packers are still at $24 million under the cap. As for Allen Lazard, I think the Packers could do without signing him, especially if it's going to cost them upwards of $8 to $10 million per year. Love Allen Lazard, love what he's done for this team. He does all the dirty work as a wide receiver that everyone loves to say that, and that it's true. But he kind of had a negative energy in his post-game press conference after the Lions. Doesn't really seem like he's that enthusiastic about coming back to Green Bay. He's turning 28 years old. The Packers are getting younger at wide receiver. They could draft a guy or sign a true or trade for a true #1 wide receiver like DJ Moore, DeAndre Hopkins. That would give them more value at, you know, slightly more cost, but would give them a lot more value than Allen Lazard would. So I'm going to keep him, let him test free agency here. Justin Hollins, same thing. Chris Barnes, we already talked about. But now let's move into the two guys that I do want to retain, and we'll start with, I think, probably the most important impending free agent outside of Adrian Amos in terms of, you know, what they give to the team, and that's Keyshawn Nixon. So I really wasn't sure what to give Keyshawn Nixon, so I'm going to base it off of Jamal Agnew's contract because he is a core returner, one of the better ones in the league, that signed with the Jacksonville Jaguars a couple years ago for a 3-year, $14.2 million contract, and that's what he does. He's a special teamer, and that's what Keyshawn Nixon is. But Keyshawn Nixon can give a little bit on defense as well as a nickel corner, and Agnew can as well as a gadget player on offense. So I think it'll be very similar to this if the Packers do re-sign him, which they 100% should. So that's exactly what we're going to do. A 3-year deal, $14 million, $5 million signing bonus. We see his cap hit this year be 3.3, then jump to 4.6, then 5.9 in 2025. So if we do that deal, he's signed back to the team. They should definitely do this. They need to retain him. The Packers then still have $22 million in cap space for this year. As for Rudy Ford, I really wasn't sure what a contract for him would look like. I do think the Packers should retain him. Now, this could go a couple ways. They could re-sign Amos and let Ford go. They could re-sign Ford and let Amos go, or they could just re-sign both. They definitely could do either, but I do think they will draft a safety early regardless. But I do think they should retain Rudy Ford. I feel like this guy could be a starting safety and overall can just contribute a lot to this defense and special teams as well. So for this one, I just did a 2-year, $6 million deal. He probably could get more. He might get more. This is just a guess. Honestly, I had nowhere really to base this off of. So for this one, his cap hit would be 2.75 in 2023 and 3.25 in 2024. Signing him brings the Packers still to $20 million in cap space. And the final player is Robert Tonyan in terms of a free agent that potentially you could re-sign. He's all the way down here because his cap hit's only $500,000 due to a void year, so he's way down at the bottom here, not costing the Packers much at all if they don't retain him. I know Aaron Rodgers, I think, wants him back. I'm okay with the idea if it's a veteran minimum, a 1-year, again, a 1-year prove-it deal. But if it's not that, you probably got to let him walk. So in this case, we're going to say we're letting Robert Tonyan test free agency. He's going to go out to free agency, see if another team offers him big money. And if he ends up getting like $6 million per year from the Falcons, then so be it. The Packers should not pay that amount. But if it's like a 1-year prove-it deal closer to veteran minimum, I'm okay with it. But like I said, for now, I'm going to leave it as is. So that about does it for fixing the Green Bay Packers salary cap. Going all in, 1 more year, Aaron Rodgers does indeed return in this instance here. The Packers still have $20 million in cap space to play with. Obviously, you remove right around $5 to $6 million for the draft class, but they could still go out, sign players, maybe trade for a guy or two, and all of that sort. But as we see here, pushing money out into the future gives us the same exact issue next year. 2024, $31 million over the cap. Obviously, the next 2 years after that raise up because you have barely any players under contract. But just a quick little look here in 2024. Out of all the players we re-signed, Rashawn Gary would be the most at $23 million. Aaron Rodgers' cap hit would be $40. Bakhtiari's at $41. Kenny Clark at $28. Jair at $24. Aaron Jones at $19. Preston at $16. So obviously you would go through the same gymnastics next year, pushing money out, extending guys, restructuring guys, whatever you need to do. It's an endless loop, kicking the can down the road. But if you guys did enjoy this video, I'd really appreciate it if you left a like down below just to show the support on the channel and this type of video. And as I said earlier, if you want to see one where rebuild, Aaron Rodgers retires or gets traded, and they go Jordan Love's way and kind of start rebuilding and trying to actually fix the salary cap for future years, let me know down in the comments. Also, if you're new here, go down, click subscribe, hit the like button, and turn on post notifications for more Packers content. But I'll catch y'all in the next one. Thanks for watching. As always, go Pack Go.